All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Jamey Schrier. Jamey, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show, man.
Oh, Kevin, man, it's we've been working on this for many weeks, many months, and I'm glad it finally worked out.
Yeah, this is going to be so good. And, I being that this podcast is all about relationships and in specific business relationships. It's so cool because you and we met. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but it was probably, if I had to guess, probably around 2013, 14 time frame. I know that I was working with Jesse Elder at the time, and so were you. And we weren't in a group thing that he was doing together. We were both working with him independently, and the three of us ended up. We were trying to figure out what event it was. Maybe Yannick Silver's Underground, maybe Traffic and Conversion, maybe one of Brian Kurtz's things. But we were all three at an event together in person, and that's when I got to meet you. And I'll tell you, it has been. I mean, when you get to meet somebody through that process. So you and I had this mutual friend, not just a friend in Jesse, but my gosh, by that time, that guy had such a profound impact on my life and on my business that I was just so appreciative of him. And so when you get to meet, somebody like you through Jesse, it's like there is like this instant connection because of this mutual friend that we have that we just have so much appreciation for and stuff. And so you and we just connected right away. And now, all these years later, look at what's happened, man. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And I don't know who said this, maybe Jim Rome, but you are the X number of people that you hang around.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to this world of coaching and masterminds and all that, it really is so important that you kind of define who you are, who your kin is, who are the people that you really resonate with, because Jesse, because of who he is and who he was then and who he is now, I didn't question at all when meeting you the type of person that you were
Yeah.
because of that mutual connection. So when you have that level of trust and that level of shared values and all that good stuff, you can trust the people that they have in their, especially in their closest sphere, not the just Facebook in general, but the closest sphere. And I think that's a huge part of what I know that's important and valuable and sacred to you is, that is relationship. That's what this is really all about.
Yeah.
So finding people like that, but yeah, so great to kind of reminisce back then. And I think you were not that it's a competition, but I think you were Jesse's kind of first person as okay, Jesse, now the coach, outside of the karate and all that. And I think I was a close second.
Gotcha. Well, I'll tell you what, there's been a lot of water under that bridge because I don't know how many people he's coached and entrepreneurs he's helped, but it has been a lot. I mean, he has made such a profound impact on millions of people's lives when you really think about it because of who he's served, which is so many entrepreneurs who are doing such big things already in their businesses. And it's just helped them have such an even bigger impact and impact more people's lives through their businesses. It's really phenomenal when you start thinking about things in those terms. And
Well, it's the ripple effect, right?
yeah,
I mean, I can
yeah,
just look at, I mean, how many people have I influenced with the hundreds of owners and just in the healthcare space, and how many people that's affect in their relationships, their staff, their patients and clients, knowing that Jesse was a big part of me having the ability and the confidence and the wherewithal to then do that. Same thing with you. So you're right, it is millions of people. And then of course it's the influences of Jesse and who he was influenced by that the connection. So it
Yeah,
really is powerful when you look at everything we're doing and you get out of the weeds. It's about the connection and the engagement of the relationship.
that's right. Absolutely. Well, I want to dig in here, and I want to start by I want to turn it over to you, Jamey, because I want to set some context here for everybody that's listening to this, and I want you to share, about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work that you're doing in the world, and let's start there so we can set a little bit of context and let the listeners know who Jamey Schrier is and what you're all about.
Yeah, so I'll kind of start with me as my young entrepreneur self, but back then I didn't look at it as an entrepreneur. So I came out of the healthcare world. I'm a physical therapist by trade. I
Okay.
still hold my license, and always knew I would have my own business, my own practice, as they call it, and that's what I did. I started my own practice, and just like any other entrepreneur business owner, when you start your own practice, you work really hard, energy is high, and you just do your thing. And because I love helping people so much that I went into a field of helping people, and I get so much reward from doing it. And my wife, well, fiance at the time, Colleen, my wife now, she was there with me. So it was a nice little small family affair, and it was great. I was making decent money. Decent would probably be around $100,000 at the time.
Okay.
Decent money, more than I could make as an employee.
Mhm.
And, I was working kind of your normal hours, 9 to 5, but obviously that was treating and then I was doing that. And then as things evolved, we started to grow and I started to hire people. I noticed a deep angst that started to arise.
Okay.
And the deep angst, Kevin, started to arise because I made the assumption that people thought like I did. People treated people like I did. People showed up ready to work and engage like I did. And when they didn't do that, and my staff just didn't operate the way I thought they should, it started to cause a lot of stress and angst in my life.
Okay.
And a couple years later, it was so much so that I was working 60, 70 hours a week, if not more. Um, I began to get very, very anxious. Um, we had kids at the time. I was missing kids' events, which is, I wanted to be at my kids' events. The money started to not be more with hiring people. It started to be less because I had to focus on payroll and paying everyone. And I kind of woke up one day and I went, this is not my life. This is not what I signed up for. I signed up for freedom. I signed up for unlimited income potential. I signed up, I can do what I want and all that. And that's not where I was.
Yeah.
So I went through a period of soul searching and I realized that I really didn't have a clue how to build this. I knew physical therapy. I could treat anybody. I was very good at it, but I didn't know the business of physical therapy. So
Okay.
that's when I started to invest. I invest a lot of money. I invested money in someone that I know you know, Dan Sullivan, strategic coach.
Mhm.
Somebody introduced me to that, and I really loved that because it was outside of my field. There wasn't a ton inside the physical therapy practice field. And I learned a ton with that. It wasn't easy, a lot of trial and error. But it took me 9 years, and in 2013, I achieved my initial goal. Do you know what my initial goal was? I had
What
one
was
goal,
your initial goal, Jamey?
to not have to work on Monday.
Okay.
That
Okay.
was it.
Yep.
I freaking hate Mondays. The only thing worse than Mondays is Sunday night. And if you're an
Okay.
entrepreneur and you know exactly what I mean, Sunday night, once dinner ends, all you think about is, oh God, what do I got to deal with tomorrow? What's going to be on my plate tomorrow? What's going to be in my inbox tomorrow? Because, that's when everyone quits. That's when all hell breaks loose. In my case, for some reason, I don't know what happens on Saturday and Sunday, but half the patients that were coming in all of a sudden cancel for whatever reasons. So 2013, I said, take me off the schedule completely. I was hanging on by a thread. And my business, believe it or not, shot up. We shot up. Almost 20% our business grew.
Wow.
I literally was not treating anyone. I had a team in place. I had some managers in place, directors. I had a couple locations here right outside of DC in Maryland. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. My stress was 100 times better. So I shared my story just because I felt like it was important to share it. And people reached out and they said, can you help me do what you did? And I was like, I guess so. So in that moment, I started helping people, but in a different way, helping people and guide them through of how to build initially, how to build their practice, their private practice. And I fell in love. And I said, this is my calling. This is who I am and what I'm about. And that's when I began getting into this whole world of coaching and this whole world of the internet. Kevin, I knew how to turn on the computer. I knew how to do my documentation of my clients. That's where it pretty much ended. I knew nothing about all of this internet marketing, all this advertising, nothing. And that's when I reached out to someone that was in my group at Strategic Coach. And I went up to this guy who was kind of an interesting dude. He wasn't your normal guy. There was a lot of financial people in my group, some high-level salespeople. But here was this guy, kind of dressed differently, kind of skinny and gawky, who just said things that just resonated. And I went up to him and I said, during a break, I said, I have this stuff in my head of everything I've learned in this business that I've been in now at the time, 15, 16 years. I'd love to kind of put it in some kind of framework to help other people struggling. Can you help me? And he grabbed a napkin or a piece of paper, I can't remember, and in 2 minutes drew some diagram. And he said something like this. And I said, exactly. He goes, I can help you. And that was Jesse Elder.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
that's what I've been doing now, having worked with Jesse 3, 4 years and known him for now 11. Since 2013, I've been working, uh, helping practice owners in their business of physical therapy, pediatric occupational therapy, chiropractors, and mental health and what have you, helping them build and grow their business to really have the kind of life that they want and remove them from this day-to-day craziness that happens. And now in the last year and a half, I've expanded it to working personally with entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I remember when you shared with me that one of your practice owner clients that you had helped, she ended up exiting her business and had a really nice payday there. And but not but what really impressed me was that she stayed with you. And she's like, so now she doesn't own her practice anymore. But she's like, man, Jamey, your help has been so valuable. I want you to stay with me and help me figure out what I'm going to do next. What's my next thing going to be? You know,
Yeah.
and
It was kind of wild. So, you're talking about my friend Carrie, who's just amazing. And so she had a mental health business and she was getting 300 emails a day.
wow.
And I said, how do you get anything done? She goes, I don't. I deal with emails. I have a meeting or two, and I go, all I do is it's just constant. So we started working together and we started to help reduce those emails and start putting in some structure and foundation and process. And her business started to grow. And then she had an amazing offer. And when I met her, I don't know, business was, I guess, a few million. Um, but she ended up selling it for a lot of money, 25 plus million. Um, and then I said, well, I really have enjoyed working with you. And this was a couple years. And she goes, well, could we continue to, meet every month? And I said, sure. And then I said, can I ask why? He goes, I just really enjoy talking with you. I enjoy kind of thinking stuff. And I feel like I could just be vulnerable and be myself and think about other things and other ideas that I have. And I said, I love that. So we kept up that relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it speaks volumes to how valuable you are for the people that you serve and stuff. And okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, and I know you've already mentioned a couple people, but I want to dig in deeper with you and stuff. So I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. So, Jamey, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience and dig deeper into this whole topic of relationships with you.
Yeah, so back in the, I guess, late 1990s, I was out of school, out of physical therapy school, working for a place, starting to move into my first business, which was this was when Tiger Woods was coming up in the golf, and I
Okay.
was one of the first people to combine kind of exercise and golf. Now it's
Okay.
huge, right? But back then, really nobody did that. And Tiger was just on the scene and changed it. So I hooked up with another friend of mine, and we kind of started this business. And then I started kind of hanging out with a few more business people in the area, even though I was in my 20s, and connected with people. And at the time, Dan Sullivan, who I heard of, but not really sure how I heard of, his marketing was basically going around to different places around the country and doing, like a 90-minute talk and providing some, drinks and light fare and really high-end stuff. Like, it was like the Ritz-Carlton
Yep.
a group of people invited me. They said, "Hey, we're going to go see Dan Sullivan and kind of hear about what he does and all that." And I was like, "Ooh, this is cool. I'm just some young, guy, didn't really know shit about anything." Um, and it just, what he said just resonated. It just really resonated. And I kept that in my mind. And then later on, when things started to go south in my practice, um, I reached back out to his company and joined up and,
Okay.
and met Dan, and got connected with one of his coaches, Lee Brower. Lee had a massive impact on me. He's just the way he thinks about it, the way he takes Dan's stuff and actually, I don't want him to get in trouble, which he's been there forever. He won't, but he kind of interprets it a little bit differently,
Okay.
because the way the strategic coach worked at the time, everyone teaches the same stuff that Dan kind of put together, but they add in their own unique stuff. So Lee Brower, shout out to Lee. And then that turned into meeting Jesse. And then Jesse started challenging me to get into this world that I was in with coaching and started to say, you may want to go to trafficking and conversion. You may want to go to baby bathwater. You may want to go to Brian Kurtz's Titans. You may want to go to Yannick Silver's Underground. And I was just a sponge. I was like, sure. And then I would meet people like you and I met at one of those events, and so many other people. I met Joe Polish at one of the events and saw Marie Forleo speaking, met her, and just, met Jay Abraham. I sat at a table with him of like 5 people. I didn't know who anybody was. I
Yeah.
had dinner next to oh, what's the guy, Ryan, who wrote the book Ask.
Oh, oh, oh. Uh,
Ryan
I know who
Ryan
you're talking about. I'm just, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Levesque, Ryan
but
Levesque.
that's Ryan Levesque.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting next to him. I have no idea who he is. People are like, "Oh, you were sitting next to Ryan." I go, "I was just judging people on just who they were, just as
How they
people,
show up. Yeah.
and just how they show up."
Yeah.
So it just started opening my eyes to this whole other world, coming from a very different world. And I realized that once I started working with Jesse, and we did that for a few years, and then things evolved, and his program evolved, and what he was doing, and then I met another incredible relationship. So I was a part of Cadre. Another shout out to Derek Coburn and his wife Melanie, great people in the DC area. So he has an amazing group. He has just entrepreneurs and people in the DC area that don't really fit into the DC vibe. This is kind of a cool thing. And he's had different speakers come in, some of the biggest and brightest people. And he was like, "Hey, Jamey, a friend of mine said they had some extra tickets to this event up in Philly. I thought you might be interested." And I said, "Sure, thanks for thinking of me." So I went to Heroic Public Speaking and Michael Port and Amy Port. Again, no idea who these people were. Showed the agenda to my wife, who is an actress or was an actress in musical theater. And she goes, "Jamey, this is really cool. I think you're going to like it." And I go, "What the hell does this have to do with business?" And I went there, open mind, didn't know anybody. And wow, what a cool, just learned so much about that. Because, my wife talked about a lot of this stuff in theater and acting and how to show up and present yourself. And during one of the breaks, there was this guy, just sitting kind of by himself. He was CEO of Michael Port's company, Book Yourself Solid, and his name was Walt Hampton. His name's Walt Hampton. And I said, we just started hitting the conversation. I said, I'm actually looking for a coach. I'm looking for someone that can help me continue to evolve. Do you know of anybody? And he said, "Well, let's talk more." And he took the time to talk to me. And that was about 5.5 years ago. Walt and I have been working together. Walt is a former trial lawyer who had his own practice.
Okay.
And then, just like me, said, "There's something more."
Yep.
And at I don't know what age it was, but I'm gonna guess probably late 40s, early 50s, he shifted away from this very lucrative but high stress business to start coaching. And he started coaching with lawyers, and then he expanded to coaching with other entrepreneurs. And again, just resonated, and my business with Walt has just blossomed and grown and opened up other relationships that people I've met. So there's obviously so many more shout outs than that, but those are some really huge relationships that
Yep.
when I look back have led me to this point.
Yeah. So if you look back at the people you mentioned Dan, you mentioned, now I'm already having a brain fart. One of Dan's coaches, what was Lee Brown.
Lee Brown.
And you mentioned Jesse, you mentioned Walt. So if you look at just these four people, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm sure you'll be able to come up with a number of examples, and I just want to challenge you to come up with one. And it'll probably be the first thing that comes to mind when I ask. But if you look at these four gentlemen and the impact that they've had on you, what is an example of where you were just really empowered, where you got to make a really substantial impact, where you recognize it, you're like, wow, look at what just happened there. And you also know that that would have never happened if not for your relationship with any one of these four gentlemen. What is an example of something like that?
Yeah, I think Jesse's a good example. I would say Jesse or Walt. But I'd probably choose Jesse first because I was so new at this whole world of coaching, consulting, internet marketing stuff that he was teaching me stuff which seemed to be light years ahead of where I was. Like my first clients were $5,000 to come to a like a 2.5 day workshop.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what a workshop was. I wasn't sure what a workshop did. And Jesse goes, "We can worry about that later. What I need to help you do is get over your stuff around money. Because as a healthcare provider, especially in physical therapy, we have big problems with money. I had big problems with money blocks, money issues, you name
Okay.
it. Prior to that, the most I ever sold was like $150 session. So he's like, I need to help you get over that. So he challenged me to have those kind of conversations and stay in the conversation, focusing on them, getting out of yourself, and believing so much in what you're doing is helping them, which of course I did not believe.
Okay.
Logically, I believed it, but internally, I'm just a fraud. Like, why would they ever pay me this kind of money? This is insane. And then seeing three people saying yes and making more money than I would have made in the physical therapy world in like a month
Yeah.
and doing it in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So with him, you know, he shared, Jesse loves his quotes, and so I love quotes, I love sayings, and I'll be the first person to say, so I don't even know where I get some of them. So but he said something that I use today, and I'll give him all credit for it. He said, Jamey, it's just about being the you that you could be if you could just be you. And as a
Wow.
very left brain, analytical, science background person, it took me about a few hundred times hearing that from him over the years to understand what the hell that meant. And he taught me, he goes, everything else you're teaching, it can be really replicated. You're not the first person to teach anybody how to build a business. Your stories cannot be replicated. Your perspective cannot be replicated. Lean into who you are because no one can replicate that. And that really has stood with me for years. And when I started hooking up with Walt in his own way, shared that same philosophy. Because Jamey, I know it's hard, but the bright, shiny objects, nobody has it figured out that you don't know. There's no, there's no magic anything, right? What there are is really great marketers out there, but there's no magic anything. And that's so hard when you believe someone has it figured out and you don't. But I always come back to Jamey, the only thing you really have control over is just showing up as the authentic and genuine you. And that's something I've taken in everything that I've done. And anytime I've leaned away from that, not great things have happened. Anytime I've leaned towards that, amazing things have happened. And amazing things have happened with the clients I work with when I now take them down that same path of helping them peel away and uncover the gook that is put on us on so many different levels that kind of keep our light, shining that light, which again, I remember learning that from Jesse. So that was probably the most impactful thing that if I didn't learn that, I'm not saying maybe it wouldn't have come on later, but the impact that had at that moment, 100% is where I am now and what I continue to lean in working with my clients and growing my business and sharing my message.
Yeah. Wow. It's about being the you that you could be if you could just be you. And I mean, that's been such a big part of what Jesse's helped me with too. Is just, I remember you mentioned, underground as a possibility for being where you and I met for the first time, and I remember distinctly being at an underground event that Yannick Silver hosted back in Washington D.C., and it was the final day of the event, and Jesse and I were having lunch, And as we sat there, he was telling me, he's like, Kev, he's like, I just been watching you over the last few days. And he's like, it's very interesting to watch you when you're in a conversation with somebody, whether it's in the hallway, whether it's at the bar or wherever. And he's like, because most people, when they're in conversation, there's one party is engaged, but the other isn't. And in fact, the other might be, slightly disengaged, or they may be actively disengaged, actually scanning the room or the area to see who else is there that they can go talk to because they want to get out of the conversation that they're in. And he's like, he's like, every time I saw you in a conversation with anybody, both you and that person were like 100% engaged in the conversation. He's like, it was almost like that Get Smart dome just come down over the top of you, and you're just under there, just completely engaged with each other. And he's like, I just wanted to share that with you, an observation. And I'm like, Jesse, I was like, I love having conversations like that with entrepreneurs and just really getting to know who they are and what they're all about and what they're working on and what they want to accomplish. And I said, I love those conversations and stuff. And I just want to, I really appreciate the work that we're doing. And I really like the new me that's coming from all of this. And he kind of chuckles and he's like, Kev, he's like, this ain't the new you, man. He's like, this is the real you. And I'm like, once again, it's back to what you said. If you could just be the you that you could be if you were just being you. And, that was years ago that Jesse and I had that conversation, that he saw in me what I maybe didn't see at the time. And really, it took me some real time. I mean, I look at the caliber of entrepreneurs that I'm in contact with now. And a few years back, I couldn't even imagine this, that I'm talking regularly with millionaires and billionaires. And there was a time when I, like you said, imposter syndrome. Who do I think I am trying to, I would put them on a pedestal, like they've done all of this. And like, I haven't done anywhere near the stuff that they've achieved. What do you think you're trying to do, trying to be of value to them? Stuff. Who do you think you are? And we've worked through that. And now I just get to be me. And it is just amazing to see what's taken place.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that have been really impactful on my life, especially as I look back and reflect, and you and I both know how powerful reflection is I've always been attracted, including my wife, to people that have a very strong a very strong sense of self.
Yeah.
I mean, you just said it. My mind went there, and I was like, the you that you could be if you could just be you. So I look at Dan Sullivan, very strong sense of self, who he is, what's he about, unapologetic. Jesse, a huge sense of self.
Yeah.
Walt, my coach now, Walt Hampton, knows who he is, does not try to compete and be something he's not. And I think that that's what this whole game is about, is continuing to go deeper, to connect with your true sense of self, shine your light, as we talk about the lighthouse, shine that light brighter and brighter, and impact the people that you want to impact in the manner in which you do it, which means whatever the solution, the thing that you provide.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, the people that haven't attracted to just naturally, like I don't not like them or anything. It was just, I never connected. They didn't have that. There wasn't authenticity. There wasn't there was something my, I don't know, you call it the vibrational antenna, you call it like the emotional guidance system that we have. There was something in me that says there's something not quite real enough for me.
Yeah.
Might be a nice person, but it's not real enough. And the more you step into that, the more you connect with great people, and the more you get confidence in who you are and how you show up. The one thing I've learned through Walt more than any other coach is how to show up as your badass, unapologetically amazing self.
Yeah.
And when you show up like that, not worrying about what people might think, because you can't control that, not worrying about what people might say, whether they'll work with you or not, whether they'll buy from you or not, but you just show up as you, man, for the right people, there's nothing more attractive. There's nothing more
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been a huge thing as far as the relationships that I've had and the experience I've had because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been powerful, Jamey. This has been really powerful, and I know that I ain't the only one feeling it. Anybody that's listening to this is probably going, "Man, Kev, I like Jamey, man. I like the way Jamey shows up." For anybody who's listening to this right now and feeling that way, what are some resources, websites, whatever that we can share with them in case they want to just follow up and find out more about you?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna follow me, you can jump on my social channels at Jamey Schrier,
Okay.
LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out Jamey at Practice Freedom U, the letter U.
Okay.
Don't let the and my website's the same thing. Don't let the practice freedom part fool you. I am expanding beyond to just a practice owner. My intention, what I'm putting out there, what I'm doing is, yes, I love helping and working, and I have other coaches in my company that are helping and working the practice owner, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there. There's a lot of people making a huge difference in this world that need guidance.
Yeah.
Masterminds are great. I'm a part of yours. Um, Peer-to-peer groups are great, but coaching, I never would be where I am without coaching, without having someone in my corner, solely in my corner, allowing me to be vulnerable, allowing me to be imperfect, allowing me to share ideas without judgment, who knows me so well that knows my blind spots. That's the kind of coaching that I do.
Yeah.
And the type of person that I work best with is someone that has something that they just want to put out in the world and want to impact. And they might be stuck or unsure of how to kind of break through with that. Those are the people that I get inspired and do my best work with. So follow me, reach out if you'd like to have a conversation. But yeah, that's a little bit of who I am.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jamey, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation, just share from the heart. Uh, this has been amazing. And I really appreciate you. And thank you so much again. And I'm excited to get this out there, Jamey.
My pleasure.